Fantasyland is a staple of any Disney castle park. The original Fantasyland, of course, opening up in Disneyland, California in 1955. The next one opening up with the Magic Kingdom in Florida in 1971. Now, both of these lands have been through a lot of changes and upgrades and downgrades and the like over their many years of operation. But the question for today, in their current state in 2022, which Fantasyland is better? Let's check it out. Let's check it out. Round one, we'll be talking about the castles. Now, you could argue the castles are kind of part of Main Street, but really they are the gateways to Fantasyland. In a previous video, I ranked all of the castles across all of the Disney parks around the globe, and so my thinking here for this round is going to go along with similar lines. We'll start with the original Sleeping Beauty Castle in Disneyland, opening 1955. It is historically significant. It is iconic. I mean, it is the Disneyland castle, right? Like we gotta acknowledge that is the original castle. So there's something to be said about that. It's iconic and it has a walkthrough attraction that goes through the castle. It's kind of really cramped quarters in there. A lot of people overlook this thing, but there is a cool walkthrough attraction through the Sleeping Beauty Castle. It's awesome. It tells the story of Sleeping Beauty as you go through these little scenes, look through these little windows, and it is fun. The castle, as I said, iconic from the front, and it does look really good from the backside as well. I think it might even look better from the backside when you're in Fantasyland because it's tighter corridors, so the castle looks bigger just because you're not in such a wide open space. But that is the Disneyland castle. Magic Kingdom's castle is obviously much bigger. It was built afterwards. Cinderella's castle, big, beautiful. It relies a lot less on forced perspective because they just made it bigger in reality rather than trying to trick your brain into perceiving it as bigger than it actually is. I believe this castle is what Walt would have built more or less if he had more money and more time when building Disneyland. It doesn't have a walkthrough attraction like Disneyland's does, so there's some points taken off for that, but it does have a restaurant inside of the castle. Cinderella's Royal Table is a very, very fancy restaurant. I've never got the pleasure of eating there, but I would love to try it out someday just to eat in Cinderella's castle. Additionally, this castle has some walls and spires that kind of extend into some of the open space farther back in Fantasyland, which just makes the castle feel even bigger. It's more impressive than Disneyland's. I'm sorry, original Disneyland castle, but the first point, without question, has to go to the Magic Kingdom. Round two. Not four, just round two. The layout. And we're not talking about theming. We're not talking about immersion. I'm talking about the roadways, the walkways, just the way that these lands are laid out in the parks. Now, I know Disneyland like the back of my hand. I've been there many, many times. I probably know it better than the back of my hand. I'm not actually looking back there too much. But somehow in the heart of Fantasyland, right around Alice in Wonderland and the Storybook Canal boats, I still get a little bit turned around. Fantasyland is a bit of a maze, but I break it down into four primary sections of Fantasyland. Where it stops and starts is a little ambiguous, but four primary sections of Fantasyland. When I think of Fantasyland, the first thing I think of, and probably the first thing most of you think of, is that area right behind the castle. That area, New Fantasyland, that centers around the carousel. You've got two dark rides on either side of the carousel in the center. Just behind that is Dumbo, Casey Jr. In my opinion, that is the main Fantasyland. Like, that is it. That is Fantasyland. And then to your right, you have the Alice in Wonderland area, Teacups, Alice, the Storybook Land Canal Boats. I think I got that right. That is the area I get a little turned around in, because in my mind, it's always like on the other side. I don't know, if you're in that central hub at Dumbo, you go left, you go to Frontierland, you go right, you go to Alice in Wonderland, Fantasyland area. Okay, we got that. And then section 3, I suppose, southeast of the Alice in Wonderland area, you enter the Matterhorn Loop. It's kind of detached from Fantasyland. It's just, the Matterhorn's big. Again, we're not talking about theming right now, but you just walk down a big, long pathway, and it kind of circles all around Matterhorn. Most, if not all of it. Part of that's Tomorrowland, part of it's Fantasyland. It's hard to talk about it without talking about theming, but that's a section over there, the Matterhorn Loop. And then if you go north of the Alice in Wonderland area, I suppose northeast of the Alice in Wonderland area, you get the parade pathway, so a big wide open pathway that'll take you down to Small World. All of that is Fantasyland. In your mind, it might not be, but all of that is Fantasyland, the central hub, and then it kind of branches out eastward into some other little areas. Not too bad, not too confusing. A little bit confusing, honestly, but speaking of confusing, Fantasyland in the Magic Kingdom, the layout is even more of a tangled web than that. So similarly, you do have the central Fantasyland area, the area directly behind the castle or with the carousel. This central area in the Magic Kingdom is a little smaller than it is in Disneyland. There's only 2 dark rides there, I believe, around the carousel. And then if you follow the western corridor to the left, you will pass Small World, Peter Pan, this cute little Rapunzel area before very quickly ending up at Liberty Square in the Haunted Mansion. So you can go that way a little ways, but not too far. And then if you back up towards that central area again and follow the other eastern corridor, this is where the layout gets a little bit more confusing, in my opinion. You wind around, there's the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, there's Winnie the Pooh, there's kind of more branching paths that go around the big ride that is the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. And then eventually, following that eastern path, you will end up at the Mad Tea Party, which is kind of drifting in no man's land right there. It's between, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and Autopia. It's okay, Mad Tea Party is out there. Again, I'm trying not to talk about theming. This is just, you go out there and you're like, am I still in Fantasyland? Maybe. Let's keep going and find out. Then again, backing back up towards that middle area, wrapping around the north end of Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, will take you to Fantasyland proper, is almost what I want to call it. Like, yeah, you have the central hub by the carousel, but the bulk of what I think of as Fantasyland in the Magic Kingdom is up this way. Belle's Castle is there on the top of the hill, Gaston's Tavern there as well, and then that path winds down a little bit farther to the massive Little Mermaid ride, much bigger than it is in California Adventure. Again, not talking about theming, it's just a big wide open area for the Little Mermaid. And then eventually you will enter Dumbo's Carnival and this kind of back area where it's the Barnstormer. And where does Fantasyland really stop and start? I think it's up to you. But for the layout, for this point, for the layout, just the walking paths, Fantasyland, in my opinion, in the Magic Kingdom is just this spider web going in every direction, and it's not really a concrete land. Disneyland in California has some of the same problems where it's like, where does Fantasyland start and stop? I think the layout of both of these areas is pretty weak, but in my opinion, Disneyland will be the slightly better one, taking the point here for the second round. Admittedly, that might just be because I've been to Disneyland more, so I know the layout better. I am Disneylander. I'm sorry, I tend to have a Disneyland bias just because I know it better. But still, the point stands. Round 3. Maybe the most important one of all, depending on what you go to the parks for. I go to the parks for everything. I love it all. But come on, the top of the list has to be the rides. This round is going to be worth 2 points because there are so many rides in Fantasyland, like so many rides. There's a lot to unpack and a lot to talk about, and it also makes it really, really hard to pick a winner. This round right here, the rides, might be the single hardest choice I've ever had to make in a Disneylander video. And there's an even harder choice that I had to make later in this video that I haven't even talked about yet. So this versus is really difficult because I love both of these areas and they also have a lot of flaws. But let's talk about the rides. In Disneyland, we have Alice in Wonderland, one of my all-time favorite dark rides. It is just a classic, true dark ride. Casey Jr. Circus Train, it's kind of an uncomfortable train, but it's more targeted for the little ones. I've only actually been on this once in my life, so Casey Jr.'s there. Dumbo, classic and simple. Small World, I haven't done a Small World Versus yet, so I don't want to reveal too much about that, but I think we can all agree that the exterior look of Small World is much better in Disneyland than in the Magic Kingdom. You've got this massive facade rather than a small version of it crammed inside of a building. Going on, King Arthur's Carousel. It's a carousel. The Mad Tea Party. Hey, if you ever get a chance to ride the Mad Tea Party with me, those Mad Teacups, you better be warned and watch out, because I can spin those things pretty darn fast. So fast that I myself regret it every time. But Mad Tea Party is there as well. The Matterhorn, of course, classic, amazing, thrilling, historically significant. It's under refurbishment a lot. It is old. I haven't actually got to go on it the past 2 or 3 times I've been there because it's always under one refurbishment or another. But the Matterhorn is there and it's awesome, and I love the Matterhorn and I just want to go on it, but it's always closed, but I can't go on it, but I want to go on it because I love the Matterhorn, which is there in Fantasyland. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, another classic. In my opinion, the single best dark ride of all time. It is exactly what it needs to be, and it's so well done, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Peter Pan's Flight, an awesome dark ride. Very long lines. I don't often go on it, but it is a really cool ride, although it's really, really short. Peter Pan's Flight. Pinocchio's Daring Journey, yet another classic dark ride. Snow White's Enchanted Wish, recently remodeled, vastly improved in my opinion. It made the story make a little more sense, but it's still got that classic dark ride feel. And finally, the Storybook Land Canal Boats. I mean, I love those boats. They feel a little unsafe. Feels like I'm gonna fall off into the water. But it's a fun little ride through Storybook Land and is one of many rides, as we have just seen in Disneyland's Fantasyland. There's 12 rides in one land. That's insane. 12 rides in one land. Now, I haven't done the research to back up this claim, but I believe that's the most amount of rides in one singular Disneyland in any park. For sure in any US park, but maybe in any Disney park. I mean, 12 rides in Fantasyland, that is so much happening in one place. It's kind of awesome, even if a lot of them are small rides. They're still very fun. Okay, to the Magic Kingdom. You got the Barnstormer. It's a little kid-friendly, family-friendly roller coaster. I don't know if I want to call it kid-friendly. That thing kind of surprises you with its intensity. But the Barnstormer is a little coaster back there. Dumbo. The queue is significantly better than in Disneyland. I don't think I'll do a Dumbo versus because it's really just the queue, and I'm telling you now, the queue is better in the Magic Kingdom. It's kind of like this playground that kids can play in while the parents stand by. You know, I've actually heard some parents that really hate this queue, but it is still better than the one in Disneyland. Small World, like I said, the exterior is a little worse, but the inside ride is very, very similar. Little Mermaid is also in Fantasyland in the Magic Kingdom. This ride is the exact same ride as in Disney's California Adventure. Like, it's copy-pasted the same ride, but the exterior, man, the area around it is wild in the Magic Kingdom. Not really what we're talking about in this video, but the Little Mermaid is there, and it's another dark ride that I really do love. Not quite a classic. It's like a newer era dark ride, but it's really, really well done and a lot of fun, and it's there. Mad Tea Party, same ride, spinning teacups, but this time it's got a roof on top of it because Florida weather is Florida weather. Peter Pan's Flight, again, very similar ride to Disneyland, but with a much better queue, as often the case in Florida. Prince Charming's Carousel, it's another carousel, cool. The Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, now this is like the competitor for the Matterhorn in Disneyland because the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is newer and more state-of-the-art, smoother, breaks down less, needs refurbishments less. But I could honestly do like a Matterhorn versus Seven Dwarfs Mine Train as the Fantasyland e-ticket thrill ride. I don't know off the top of my head which I prefer. I mean, like I said, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is a much smoother, better ride, but they both have their pros and cons. Anyways, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, a fantastic ride. Really pulls some extra points towards Magic Kingdom with that ride alone. Winnie the Pooh is in Fantasyland in the Magic Kingdom. It's a better version of Winnie the Pooh than was what is in Critter Country and Disneyland, although I haven't done that versus yet, so forget I said that. Winnie the Pooh is also in Fantasyland in Magic Kingdom. Okay, 9 rides. 9 rides in the Magic Kingdom, 12 rides in Disneyland. We can also count Mickey's PhilharMagic, a show in the Magic Kingdom's Fantasyland, but it's not a ride, it's a show. It's there. I haven't forgot about it. It's whatever. 9 rides in the Magic Kingdom, 12 in Disneyland. So Disneyland is winning just by sheer number, right? If we're just doing which has more rides, we could go to Disneyland, but that's not a very exciting video. So to help make our mind up, let's go back over some of the highlights that I mentioned before. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and Matterhorn being the big e-ticket in each land. Like I said, I really don't know which is better. It's hard to say. Mine Train is newer and smoother. Matterhorn is more thrilling, and personally for me, it's more nostalgic. I should have said at the top of this video, when you clicked on Versus, it's not a definitive answer. This is all just my opinion. So if you disagree, cool. I mean, that's totally fine. Just let me know below. Just for now, I can think about it more later. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is probably the better ride, so slightly in favor of the Magic Kingdom in that regard. Magic Kingdom also has, like I said, Little Mermaid, Winnie the Pooh, the superior Peter Pan's Flight, some really awesome dark rides, but Disneyland has more dark rides, and in my opinion has some better dark rides, like Mr. Toad, Alice in Wonderland. We got Pinocchio over there. It is an abundance of dark rides, and I am a big fan of those classic Disney-style dark rides. So it's really close, because I think there are some rides in the Magic Kingdom that are better than rides in Disneyland. So Magic Kingdom has a couple better rides, but they're only ever so slightly better. And Disneyland has more rides. They both have some showstoppers. They both have some kid rides that are, I don't want to say throwaway rides because I still love them. But the 2 points, and I'm sorry, I gotta go with Disneyland. I think it is a tough decision, but in the end, I think it is the only decision, in my opinion, to give these points for the rides to Disneyland. Round 4, let's talk about the food options. Going back to just being a 1 point round, but if my favorite thing in the Disney parks is the rides, food is a very close second, and there's definitely food options in Fantasyland. Now, for the purposes of this list, I won't be talking about churro carts and popcorn carts and ice cream carts and the things like that. Just unique establishments that have unique menus exclusive to them. So let's start with Disneyland. Up first, you got the Red Rose Tavern. I've never actually eaten here, but they have a decently sized menu. They got burgers, they got salads, flatbreads, fries. Pretty standard fare. They have some breakfast options as well. The reason I've never eaten here, though, is because it's nothing particularly exciting. It's for somebody. Yummy burgers, fries. I like them. You got Maurice's Treats. Now, this is more of a permanent snack cart. It's in this weird little Fantasyland offshoot that goes towards Frontierland. I don't even know if it really counts as being in Fantasyland. When I was talking about my layout, I kind of forgot this place existed. But Maurice's Treats, they serve some delicious snacks. They got these cheddar garlic bagel twists. So good. Like, honestly, so delicious. Donut holes, a boysenberry apple freeze drink that is also really tasty. This is a solid place for a midday snack. Not a very extensive menu and not a very expensive menu. So Maurice's Treats is there. We've also got the Troubadour Tavern, which is tucked way back by the Fantasyland Theater. I'm gonna be honest, I did not know this place existed at all until I started doing research for this video, but they've got a really cool and unique menu. It's quick service style food, but they have Indian food. They have sambusas, they're pretty much samosas, curry spiced potatoes, veggies, mango chutney. I mean, that sounds so good. They got coconut curry. I love Indian food. I don't know if Disneyland can be trusted to do it right, but I will definitely be trying this place as soon as I'm able to. And finally, for Disneyland, we have Edelweiss Snacks, which is a snack cart shop, little Swiss-looking house back by the Matterhorn. And as you would expect in a Swiss-looking house back by the Matterhorn, they serve turkey legs and chimichangas. I've always found that so weird. What? Okay, sure. We got the samosas by the theater and the chimichangas by the Matterhorn. Honestly, really bizarre selections in Disneyland on the whole. Fantasyland, I rarely find myself eating in Fantasyland because that's just, what a bizarre list. Magic Kingdom has a lot more selections. Let's go over some of those. And by some of those, I do mean all of those. we're going to go over all of them. Prince Eric's Village Market, another place that serves turkey legs. They also got slushies. I feel like that's a much more appropriate place to serve turkey legs. Pinocchio Village House, kind of similar to the Red Rose Tavern in Disneyland. They got flatbreads and salads, and those flatbreads are really tasty. I've actually eaten in this place. The Friar's Nook is another favorite of mine. They got a burger, they got a hot dog, but they have this bacon mac and cheese, and oh my gosh, is it so tasty. Get some of that bacon mac and cheese. It is just delicious. Whether it's a meal for yourself or a shared snack, gobble that up. It's yummy. Cheshire Cafe has pretzels and pastries and sweet drinks. Sleepy Hollow, another one of my favorites. They have chicken and waffle sandwiches, which yum, they're just so delicious. They also have fruit and waffle sandwiches. They have funnel cakes. It's a great place. I think they're open right until the park closes. So this is Sleepy Hollow is a great name for it. You can go here right at the end of the day. A lot of the restaurants start closing down at 9. Well, your chicken and waffle sandwich is waiting for you, so go get it. Storybook Treats has sundaes, has ice cream. And then in Magic Kingdom, we also have some table service restaurants if you want to slow down and spend a little bit more money. Disneyland is severely lacking, California Adventure 2, in table service restaurants. But Fantasyland Magic Kingdom, we have 2 of them. Cinderella's Royal Table, as I mentioned when we were talking about the castles, is a restaurant inside of the castle. That's awesome. And then we got the iconic, well-loved Be Our Guest, a restaurant inside of the Beast's Castle. And I've heard great things about this dining experience. Very immersive, very cool, very expensive. I've never done it myself, but I would love to try. So I think the point is obvious. I am hungry. That much is obvious. And maybe you are too now, looking at all these food options. But it has to go to the Magic Kingdom. There's really no question here. Fantasyland is maybe the weakest area in all of Disneyland for getting food. And Magic Kingdom, it is a very strong area for getting food. So round number 4, are we on? Round number 4, point going to the Magic Kingdom. Round number 5. A very, very, very important round, and maybe the most difficult decision I've ever had to make in a Disneylander versus video, as I teased a little bit before. This is another 2-point round because of how essential it is, which means that it's still anyone's game. So let's talk about the atmosphere and the immersion of Fantasyland. Immersion is one of the single most important things at any Disney park. Immersion is why Disney is so successful, why they're the king of the game, is because they can take you to worlds more completely than anyone else has really been able to do it. But which Fantasyland is more immersive? Which Fantasyland makes me feel like I'm really transported into a world of fantasy and wonder? Fantasy is such a loose, vague concept that it makes immersion really tricky. Going back to some of the points that I made when I was talking about the layout of the lands, both Fantasylands are really big and sprawling and kind of full of their own little mini areas contained within this umbrella of Fantasyland, which makes it really difficult to decide. And there's some highlights and there's some lowlights. And I want to talk about the best way I can see to break this down is to give you some of the best and some of the worst aspects of both Fantasylands. Starting with Disneyland. That central area right behind the castle, that area surrounding the carousel, is incredible. It is themed after a quiet little Bavarian village. It's really, really masterfully well done. It just fits. Like when you think of Fantasyland, when you think of fantasy in general, that little quiet Bavarian town just feels right. It feels very storybook. It feels very classic Disney, and it is very immersive. From the bricks that are paved on the ground to the ways that the structures of the buildings are built is very complete. It's very comprehensive and immersive. The buildings, again, they're cute, they're delightful, and they extend all the way back through Dumbo and the Red Rose Tavern, right up against the barrier of that pathway to Frontierland is all this little wonderful Bavarian town. And I think that is the highlight of Fantasyland in Disneyland. The Alice in Wonderland area it's also pretty nice. The music from the Teacups ride is maybe my favorite in all of the parks. It's just, I I'm just happy when I hear that music. The Alice in Wonderland area is pretty quirky. It's got like a couple metal flower lighting structures by the queue for Alice and the giant mushroom that used to be a ticket booth, and some other little details like the lanterns hanging over the teacups and the Mad Hatter's little shop. It's still pretty immersive. It kind of follows that Bavarian town trend and shifts into a little bit more weird quirkiness for Alice in Wonderland. So while it's a pretty small section, I do think that it is themed quite well. It is pretty immersive, whatever it's trying to go for. I don't really know. Wonderland, I guess, but you're not quite there yet. But still, it's very well done. Those are the highlights for Disneyland. And there's also some weak points. You got the pathway, the parade path. It is a very wide open pathway down towards Small World. Wide paths mean less immersion, in my opinion. I made a video a long time ago called The Charm of Congestion, where I was talking about how the tiny, narrow little paths in Disneyland, yes, they're crowded, and that sucks, but the theming is so thorough. Where you go to a park like Shanghai, where the pathways are massive, colossal pathways, and Fantasyland in Shanghai is like, well, there's the cute little Bavarian building, but its neighbor is half a mile behind me because this pathway is so large. And so the Small World parade path is kind of nothing. It's for parades, really, is what it's for. You got some of the Small World theming. The Small World music starts to play as you walk down that path, but there's not really a whole lot to say about it because there's not really a whole lot of theming. The same thing goes for the Matterhorn loop. I love the sounds of the Matterhorn, the whistling, the creepy sounds, but you're right between Fantasyland and Tomorrowland, and it doesn't really feel like either. You've got that beautiful shot where you can see the lagoon in the Matterhorn, but that's more Tomorrowland. And from the Fantasyland side, yeah, you can see it from the Alice in Wonderland, of course. It's right there next to you. You're in the shadow of it. But the Matterhorn loop as a whole, apart from like Idleweiss snacks, doesn't have a whole ton of theming. Okay, and so for the Magic Kingdom, some highlights and some lowlights. The Magic Kingdom was built with a lot more space, which is great in some regards, but as I just mentioned, bigger spaces are generally harder to theme. But then even with all of those bigger spaces, the Bavarian Village on the other side of the castle, it's still there in the Magic Kingdom, but it's tiny. There's not really much to say about it. There's the carousel and there's, I believe, 2 dark rides and not a whole lot going on. I still like that theming in general, but then depending on which pathway you take, the theming really splits up and has some more highlights and some more lowlights. I personally really like the area. I know I mentioned the pathways are a bit confusing, but around the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and Winnie the Pooh, there's this area that feels a little bit like Critter Country, but with the Seven Dwarfs appeal and the little Bavarian village motifs here and there, feels like a fantastical woods. And I think that theming is really well done. That's another storybook-esque vibe that you get as you're walking through there. It just feels enchanted, and I really do like that area a lot. But then you get to the end of it, all this wonderful landscaping and theming, and just plop down there at the end is the Mad Tea Party. It doesn't have the whole little Alice in Wonderland area like Disneyland does, and so you have this enchanted forest behind you and Autopia in front of you, and the Mad Tea Party's kind of just there in no man's land. I know they just wanted to put that, it's a cheap ride, it's a fun ride, it's a beloved ride, so they wanted to put it in the Magic Kingdom as well. That is maybe the weakest point of Fantasyland in the Magic Kingdom. It's just kind of there. The Mad Tea Party hanging out. Not a deal breaker though. Really not. It's not that big of a deal at all. We can then go down even farther to Dumbo's Circus, which is honestly, it's really cute. If we're talking about theming and immersion, maybe this isn't the area that all the adults love, but the theming is really well done. It's cohesive. It knows what it wants to be, and it nails it. It's a little circus. It's a little carnival. It's got the Casey Jr. splash pad, which I think is a fun, especially in Florida, is a fun and necessary thing to have there. I really like the big top tent. That's a gift shop. It's fun. It's a fun area. Even inside of that gift shop, there's theming with spotlights and whatnot going on, which is not something that you see in all the gift shops. So the circus being one of the highlights in Fantasyland at the Magic Kingdom for sure. You could argue that it is its own separate area. Is it Fantasyland? I say yes. I think the maps say yes too, but it's very distinct. It's very cut off from the rest of the land. And then going back westward, maybe the highlight of Fantasyland, in my opinion, I mentioned that a little bit with the layout too, is this area around Gaston's Tavern. I mean, that's where it locks in that little Bavarian village vibe a little bit better. Of course, it's just Belle's village, and the Beast's castle up above on the mountain. It looks really cool. I mean, that is the most Fantasyland section of Fantasyland in the Magic Kingdom, in my opinion. On the very far side, near Liberty Square, there's also this little tangled area. There's no rides. There's a bathroom. It's a nice bathroom, and this little garden where you can kind of like search and find Pascal. Isn't that his name, the little chameleon dude? I think it's really cute. That's one of the newer areas. It borders Liberty Square, like I said. There's not attractions there, but it is really cool. I think that is maybe the most immersive of all the areas in the Magic Kingdom Fantasyland. It is this contained little tangled area. It's delightful. Oh, and I almost skipped right over it. The Little Mermaid area. The Little Mermaid, the queue, the exterior is awesome. It is so cool over there in the Magic Kingdom. I don't know why it's in Fantasyland. It feels like it should neighbor Pirates of the Caribbean because the theming goes back to this nautical shipwreck and these big rockscapes. Is it immersive? Yes. Is it in Fantasyland? I don't know. Fantasyland in the Magic Kingdom has higher budget areas, but they're these contained. It doesn't flow very well. It's very cool, but does it flow very well? I don't know. And then the biggest letdown, the worst area, the area most in need of a refurbishment in the Magic Kingdom's Fantasyland is that area around PhilharMagic, around Small World and Peter Pan. Magic Kingdom still has these old Renaissance Fair tents that it's pretty much had since opening day. This is the vibe that all of the original Disneyland opened with. Renaissance Fair, colorful tents. That was the original Fantasyland and Disneyland until they redid it to what it is today with the Bavarian City. Well, part of that still remains there in the Magic Kingdom. It is a theme, it is a vibe, it is consistent in that little area, but it's cheaper. You know, it's not entirely impressive. So now for the hardest choice I've ever had to make, because the Magic Kingdom's areas are bigger, they're more high budget. A lot of them are really, really immersive and really cool. But we're talking about Fantasyland as the whole. And in Disneyland, I thought about this, I went back and forth on this, but Disneyland is more cohesive on the whole. It picks a theme and it runs with it. I mean, even in those weak points down towards the Matterhorn, there's still that little Swiss house. Feels like it could fit right back in that Bavarian village. Going down to Small World, some of the motifs are still that Bavarian village fantasy style. Where in the Magic Kingdom, you have these pockets of really, really, really different theming. In Disneyland, once you're in Fantasyland, it picks a theme and it sticks to that theme. And the immersion is solid because of that. Yes, Magic Kingdom has these immersive sections, but it's jarring to go from one to another, where you don't really have time to absorb or process the place that you're in. And so it's a tough call. Future me in a couple weeks might disagree with the call I'm making right now, but I think Disneyland's Fantasyland is the more immersive as a whole. And so these final 2 points, I'm gonna give to Disneyland. Disneyland wins. Fantasyland, more rides, more cohesive theming, even if it is a little smaller, and even if it is a little lower budget, and even if Magic Kingdom has much, much better food. Don't get me wrong, I love them both. Fantasyland is not my favorite land in either park, but I love it in both parks. I love the atmosphere. It just makes me so happy to be in Fantasyland. It's like I'm really there when I'm there, because when I'm there, I am indeed there. Anyways, Disneyland, let me know down below what you think. Do you disagree? Do you agree? Do you have any really wonderful Fantasyland memories that you want to share with me down below? Because I would love to hear them. If you enjoyed this video, if you think someone else would enjoy this video, do me a huge favor. Share it with a friend. That's the most important thing you could do for a small YouTuber like myself. Likes and comments and the like are wonderful, but spread it. Let other people see this. And also follow the Disneylander TikTok. What the heck? I don't even know how to use it, but at Disneylander YT on TikTok, I've got some goofs going on over there with, well, you'll just have to go see. There's a little guy. He keeps popping up and causing trouble everywhere he goes over on the TikTok. Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad to be back. Glad to be doing a versus. Got more videos coming out really soon. And so with that, I'm ending the video and saying goodbye. Bye.